So Zimmer was talking about how Minnesota needs to get back to being who they are. And well, who are they? Like when everything is going well, who are the Minnesota Vikings? Now, I would think it's a run first team, right? Well, Minnesota they did have 27 offensive snaps in the first half in Indy. I'm focusing on the first half because I feel like that's kind of where things were mostly lost. Because after that, you're in panic mode, basically. But in the first half in Indy, of those 27 offensive snaps, 67% of those plays involved Kirk Cousins dropping back, throwing the football. And on 55% of those attempts, you saw go towards either Irv Smith or Adam Thielen. So not much target share coming on. They each had 5 targets in the first half. And then in the only guys that were after that each had 2 targets in Olabisi Johnson and Alexander Madison. So, and that's it. So, obviously 67% passing means only 33% running. Now, 55% of those carries actually did go to number 33 and Dalvin Cook, which is good because you want to see him get majority carries. But the only problem was there was a total of 9 carries. Not for Dalvin, in general. So, balance is definitely out of whack here. And, he only carried the ball 5 times, and he was never thrown to. So, of these 27 snaps, 18.5% of those snaps actually tried to involve Dalvin Cook in the play. Just their best playmaker. That's not an excusable thing. Nothing will excuse that kind of mess. And that has to change. He is your playmaker. He's the guy that can make things go. I think we have established that already. So I see no reason why they actually don't involve him. And just getting back to what this team is and needs. It needs a much more run-oriented attack. And, because that does help your defense. Whether people like to admit that or not, it does. Even with the defense struggling. They should be less fatigued. They're out there less. Maybe not as much pressure to always play perfect, which clearly they have not been. But if your offense isn't moving the ball, that puts a lot more pressure on the defense. But if all of a sudden you can, run the ball, grind clock, you can not only keep them well rested, but potentially even put them in more favorable situations in terms of scoreboard and clock. So, really not an issue there. And then, because this team has been built to run the ball and then pass set up by the run. Right now, they're kind of throwing and trying to set up the run through the throwing. And that's just not how this team is built. If you even look at the offensive line, a majority of them, if you ask like offensive line guys even, they will say it's a better run blocking offensive line than pass blocking. And yet they're going to be dropping back more often than not as of these last 2 weeks. So that's a little bit of a concern. Don't know why that continues to happen. And, another staple I would just like to see return to this offense in order to just keep the ball, continue to move the football. I want to see the return of screen passes. And we haven't really seen many so far through the 2 games. And that was kind of a big part of what made Minnesota a 10-6 team last year around. And was even a big part of why they beat the Saints in New Orleans in the playoffs last season. And we haven't really seen any of that. Once again, that's just screen plays usually involve running back, Dalvin Cook. Once again, one of your best playmakers, if not your best playmaker. So, what gives? And I think you could look potentially at Dakota Dozier. I think he kind of makes it so, the line isn't as mobile with him out there. And we could potentially see Ezra Cleveland come in to actually help spark this back up again. And just so we know how different the athleticism is, I do have numbers. Because if you've been here a while, you know I love my numbers. Ezra, 6'5", 310. Dozier, 6'3", 313. Bench press, 30 for Ezra, 23 on Dozier. 40, 493 to 542. 10-yard split, 173 versus 195. Vertical, which, usually a pretty good judgment of explosion, 30-inch vert versus 24-inch. Another good measure of explosion, the broad jump. 9'2" for Cleveland, 8'3" for Dozier, so nearly a foot more. 20-yard shuttle, 446, 489. 3-cone, 726, 814. So the athleticism isn't even in question, and that's also another thing you could see actually with all of the zone stuff. It's sometimes hard for Dozier to get up to the second level, hence the 195 10-yard split. 173, that's actually really good. He can get up to the second level, and all of a sudden you can put him out on screens, and you can actually operate that way. And the other thing is, the reason why they drafted him, a lot of his strengths are kind of what this offense does. You need him to do a reach block, he can do that. He likes getting to the second level. He's very mobile. He can go left, right. Maybe not the best power guy and has some strength issues. Yes, but he's also so much more talented than Dozier, and right now, with things as bad as they are, I see no reason as to just why not throw the kid out there, personally. But I think it would allow a main staple of this offense to not only come back, but to potentially come back better than it was last season, because we did not have an athlete like this as well as one. We now have one on each side with O'Neal and Ezra in terms of athleticism. So that's nice. And we shall see if they actually do that. But I think Ezra Cleveland would actually forward the motion of trying to get back to who this team is and what they would like to be. And even though there would be struggles at times, I do know that would happen. Once again, he had some core strength problems at Boise State, and there's no way he ironed all of those out in the time span they have had to work with him. I don't see how that could have possibly happened. But if you're telling me he was better than Dakota Dozier, for what this system is, I would certainly buy it. And I think right now that's something they could do, and also a thing that would help them get back. Even though a biggest part about this would actually be, you don't necessarily need to run more, which Zimmer also said, but I do think you do need to include Dalvin Cook a lot more than they have been including Dalvin Cook. And it wasn't like the score was completely out of hand. The half ended at 15-3. That's very recoverable if you come out and actually play the second half. But for a large portion, that was not the case. So, because there was an extra field goal at the end tacked on. So, a 12-3 lead, if you don't turn the ball over at the end of the half, you can work with that. There was also a safety. So, if the offense, once again, can do its part, 10-3, just don't turn the ball over, essentially. That's very workable, and it's kind of a big reason why they lost. And you could say the same thing for the first week. So I would like to know your guys' comments, opinions, all that good stuff down below in the comment section. And like and subscribing, super helpful. And until next time, I bid y'all adieu.